All right, let's talk about something you probably use a dozen times a day, the search engine. We're going to dive into how it's being totally reinvented. But here's the crazy part. This isn't about making a better search engine for us. It's about building one for AI.
I mean, your search engine is pretty smart, right? It feels almost like magic. It can find that recipe you saw once. It settles arguments with your friends. It knows the name of that actor that's been driving you crazy. It's built for the way our brains work. But what if the person or thing doing the searching isn't human?
Okay, so to really get where this is all heading, we've got to go back, way back, to the very beginning, really, the age of keywords. This was, the first big search revolution, and it was all built on one super simple but really powerful idea.
So let's jump in a time machine to 1998. This new thing called Google shows up, and it honestly feels like straight-up magic. You type in a word, say Australia, and poof, it would pull up every single document on the web that had that word in it. It was completely revolutionary. And it worked because of two key things. Keywords, obviously, and this genius algorithm called PageRank, which was basically a popularity contest for websites. The more sites that linked to you, the higher you ranked.
But, and this is a big but, that keyword magic had a huge, huge flaw. It couldn't actually understand meaning. It was just matching words. So if you searched for something like shirts without stripes, what do you think happened? Well, the search engine would often just ignore the without. It saw shirts, it saw stripes, and it would give you a page full of, you guessed it, striped shirts. It could match the text, but it had no idea what you actually wanted.
And it's exactly that kind of frustration, that gap between what you're thinking and what the search engine shows you, that led to this really radical question. What if? What if you could build a search engine that didn't just work like a giant book index? What if you could build one that actually thinks more like an AI?
So this question really got under the skin of Will Brake, who's the founder of a company we're going to talk about called Exa.ai. Back in 2021, he was playing around with these new AI models like GPT-3 and was just blown away by how well they understood nuance. And he'd look at that incredible AI and then look back at good old keyword search and just see this massive gaping hole. And he basically said, right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to build a totally new search engine from scratch, one that can finally understand what we're actually trying to say.
Okay, so let's just make sure we're all on the same page about the old way of doing things. Keyword search, it's literally like the index at the back of a textbook. It's just a giant, massive list that maps a word to the document where that word shows up. It's super fast, super powerful, for sure. But at the end of the day, it's just matching characters. It's not thinking.
Now, this new way, semantic search, is a whole different ballgame. It uses this amazing concept called embeddings. And here's the best way to think about it. Instead of just making a list of words, it reads an entire article or a whole document, and then it figures out the meaning, the core idea, and plots it as a single point on this giant invisible map of concepts. So on this map, king and queen would be really close to each other. So would royalty and monarchy. See? It's not about the words anymore. It's about the ideas behind the words.
And look, building this was no small feat. This wasn't some weekend project. The Exa.ai team, they went through the famous Y Combinator startup program, they raised a couple $1,000,000, and then they did something that's almost unheard of for a startup. They just vanished. They went dark. For a year and a half, they stopped everything else and just dove into pure, hardcore research. They weren't just, tweaking a button on an app. They were trying to solve a really, really hard computer science problem from the absolute beginning.
So all that crazy research, it actually worked. They came out of their cave with a product that could understand these incredibly complex, nuanced questions. So they launched it, and the response was amazing. People were freaking out. And then, just 2 weeks later, everything changed.
So picture this. It's November 2022. Exa goes live. The tech world is buzzing. People are just blown away. For the first time, you could throw a whole paragraph at a search box, a really complex thought, and get back a super precise, super relevant answer. It really, truly felt like the future had arrived. And like the founders said, the launch was this huge, massive success, and then 2 weeks later, this happened. And that little word "this" was a tweet from a research company you might have heard of called OpenAI. They were announcing a little public experiment they had built.
You know it as ChatGPT.
Look, ChatGPT wasn't just another app. It was a meteor strike, an absolute shockwave that completely rewired how we all thought about information, literally overnight. And if you're a tiny startup that just launched what you called the future of search, well, that's what you call an existential crisis. I mean, think about it. Why would anyone need to search anymore when you could just ask this thing that seemed to know everything?
But then, something amazing happened. As the dust from that meteor strike started to settle, the Exa team had this unbelievable realization. This crisis, it wasn't a crisis at all. It was their biggest opportunity. They realized they hadn't built a better Google for you and me. No, they had accidentally, totally by chance, built the perfect search engine for the AIs that were suddenly everywhere.
And here's the super simple, just undeniable reason why. It all comes down to memory. A huge AI model like GPT-4, its entire brain might be, what, less than 10 terabytes of data? That sounds like a lot, right? But the internet, we're talking over 1 million terabytes, and it's growing and changing every single second. There is no way an AI can hold all of that in its head. To know what's happening right now, it will always need to search the live, constantly changing web.
So this is it. This is the secret sauce, the crucial insight. AIs have to search the web, but they have a giant problem. They can't use the search engines that we use. Why? Because every single one of them, Google, Bing, you name it, has been built, tweaked, and perfected over decades for one very specific type of user. And it's not them. It's us, a human being.
Just think about how different we are. We humans, we're kind of lazy. In a good way, right? We're efficient. We type in 2 or 3 keywords and we want maybe 5 good links back. An AI, it's the total opposite. It can use a massive paragraph as its search query, and it doesn't want 10 blue links, it wants 10,000 blue links. It wants a fire hose of information. It has infinite patience, and it can read it all, instantly, looking for the absolute deepest understanding.
So what does an AI actually want from a search engine? Well, it needs total precision and control. It needs to be able to search using huge chunks of context, not just a few words. It needs that fire hose of results. We're talking thousands, not 10. And at the end of the day, an AI doesn't want a web page with some links on it. It wants to treat the entire live internet as one giant, searchable, filterable database. And that is a totally, completely different tool than what we have today.
So this pivot, this realization, it's not just about one startup story. This unlocks a brand new chapter for what search even is. We are finally moving past the age of simple keywords and learning how to truly, deeply query the entire web.
And this just blows the doors off of what a search query can even mean. I mean, for decades, we've lived in this tiny little slice of the pie, just simple keywords. Then chatbots came along and opened up another slice, prompts. But a search engine that's built for an AI, oh man, that opens up the whole rest of the pie. Suddenly you can ask things that sound impossible, like, find me startups that have the same vibe as the old Bell Labs. Or even something crazy specific, like, show me every article that argues for this point, but not that point, and was only written by this one person. The web stops being a messy, chaotic library and starts becoming a structured database you can ask anything of. And that's what brings this whole story full circle. The real goal here isn't to just build another search website for us to use, it's to build one single, incredibly powerful API. Now, just think of an API as like a universal power outlet. It's a standard plug that lets any AI application, any agent, plug directly into the entire knowledge of the internet. It's like building the eyes and ears, the 5 senses, for every AI out there, letting them find and understand information no matter how ridiculously complex the question is.
And that kind of leaves us with this one last really big question to chew on. For all of human history, our biggest limitation has been just finding information. It's been hard to access. But as we build these AIs that can find literally almost anything, the challenge is shifting. It's not about access anymore, it's about wisdom. So the question for all of us is, if an AI can find anything, what on earth will we choose to look for?